Hey everyone, Shabby here and welcome back to another video showcasing another new potential manager of Manchester United. Now, this one is a bit more out there, but it is one that I have seen rumoured a few times, and it is one that the bookies are taking bets on. And it's quite a high up odds as well. And that is for Antonio Conte to come to Manchester United. Now, of course, Antonio Conte did have a short spell with Chelsea for 2 years. I thought he did quite well, to be honest. He did win the Premiership 1 year. But before that, of course, he was a manager of Juventus as well as manager of Italy. So he's had quite a lot of experience around some big clubs around Europe. So it wouldn't be completely out of the question. He's 48 years old, so he's not too old either. And his stats look incredibly good. I mean, motivating of 20 is fantastic. Man management of 17 is great. Discipline, determination of both 18 are fantastic as well. His knowledge is not as good, but hopefully he's got some really good people around him to help him out with that. And training, fantastic at mental training and pretty good attacking and tactical as well. But again, he can have other people help him out with that. But working with youngsters only being a 6 is not really fitting in too much with the Manchester United way. But either way, let's give him an opportunity to see what he can do. And let's whiz on to the end of season number 1 and see how Antonio Conte gets on. Well, it's a pretty damn good first season as Manchester United have won the Premiership. Equal points with Liverpool, but with 5 extra goals, goal difference. 27 wins, 8 draws and 3 losses. 72 goals scored, only 24 conceded. That's pretty impressive. 24 goals conceded in 38 games is very, very good. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold gun. I'm coughing away everywhere. But let's have a look and see how things went then. So transfer-wise, I think I'm actually let's ignore that. Right, so the only player they brought last season was in January, and it was Mauro Icardi, who scored 8 goals in 17 games, which is pretty cool. 26-year-old, fantastic signing, really. Paid 91 million from his worth 70, and just ignore that. That's a mod that I forgot to turn off when I recorded this one. So he's in the Anglo Cup. So let's have a look then at the schedule for last season. Right, so let's whiz to the bottom. Champions League, they were knocked out in the quarterfinals on away goals by Napoli. Knocked out the FA Cup 5th round away at Blackburn, which is pretty disappointing, to be honest with you. And EFL Cup, they were knocked out on penalties to Liverpool. So not a great season, but winning the Premiership is all that matters, really, isn't it? And these goals and clean sheets definitely helping us out. That 2-2 draw with Liverpool as well, definitely helping us out. But it's a great first season, to be honest. Winning the Premiership is absolutely fantastic. He didn't really spend that much money either, so it'd be interesting to see if he gets a big spend in his second season. So let's head straight now to the end of season number 2. The video just gets better and better. Season number 2, once again, Man United win the Premiership. 2 years out of 2 for Antonio Conte, this time by a clear point against Liverpool. Pretty big, that is. Let's have a look then transfer-wise, which you may have seen a minute ago. We looked at the end of season 1 because I keep getting it wrong. There we go. So this time spent £227 million on improvements and gained an extra point of Liverpool. First of all, though, Sergej Milinkovic-Savic, a player who I'd love to have in real life. Been linked to him quite a few times. He's a fantastic player and potentially one of the best. I think he's one of the best on the game, potential-wise. So pretty good to get a hold of him. He's worth 79 million. They paid 77 for him. Would be absolutely great. Next up then, Djibril Cissé, the French right back. 27 games this season. It's actually really, really good. So happy they got a hold of him as well. Next up, Ruben Diaz. I believe we're linked to this guy in real life. I've seen his name touted around a few times recently, so that's pretty cool. Worth 54 million. Looks like a cracking player. They paid 39 for him, so a lot of potential there for improvement. Next up, Lucas Digne from Everton. Left back, again, a very, very good signing, to be honest. Quite impressed how Conte's going on with his signings. Marc Bartra as well. Spanish centre-back, of course, used to play for Borussia Dortmund. And the final signing was Darwin Machis, who I've not actually heard of, to be honest. He brought him in January. Doesn't look like that great of a player, maybe just a backup for those positions. He's in the under-23s at the moment, so I dare say he'll probably get sold. Not a very good signing. Sale-wise, in the 18 million, Darmian went out and Fellaini went out. So a nice clearance out as well, which a lot of Man United fans will be happy with. Into the schedule, then what actually happened? So the Anglo Cup is a different cup I put in. It's a mod that I downloaded that basically makes like a British Champions League every season, so we'll ignore that. They did win the Anglo Cup, but in fairness, they beat Celtic, Swansea and Shamrock Rovers, so it's not exactly that impressive. Right, so into the important stuff. Holy crap. Holy crap, he won the treble! I've just noticed that. Won the Premiership, beat Chelsea 2-0 in the FA Cup final, and beat Liverpool on extra time 1-0 in the Champions League with a Lukaku goal. Savic was sent off as well. Chelsea goals from Pogba and Lingard. Holy hell. That is a hell of a season. By far the best manager I've seen so far. And it started poorly with the getting knocked out of the EFL Cup at the first round against Spurs. But that is an amazing season. So they won the Anglo Cup, which I know is nothing because it doesn't exist, it's not real. But then they won the Champions League, the FA Cup and the Premiership. Wow. Antonio Conte is really, really showing some incredible stats here if he wants to get a hold of this job. So let's get a hold of end of season 3 and see if Conte has progressed anymore. I don't think there's much more he could win, really, is there? So the third season wasn't quite as good for Man United as the previous two. They come second in the league, only by 1 point though, away from Manchester City, who of course had an amazing season with 27 wins, 8 draws, 3 losses. Man United only lost 2 games all season, which is very impressive though. Just a lot of draws, 10 draws. Scored 76 goals, so scored less goals than Man City, but conceded a lot less, which means they had the best goal difference in the league. So it was pretty good for Man United, and just obviously didn't get the win, if that makes sense. It was a good season. It was not bad at all. It was a season you could definitely hold your head up high. Right, don't look at that stuff. Right, first we had Haisaj from Napoli came in. Left back and right back. Decent player, got 24 games. Lewis Cook from Bournemouth, 64 million. Wow. If you ever wanted proof that young English players are incredibly overvalued, and this is perfect proof of that. Although he did get 25 games with 1 goal, so he's actually playing a decent amount of games, but still it's a lot of money to spend. Next up, Mats Hummels. Must be quite old now though, isn't he? 32, that's not a bad signing still, 32-year-old, got 33 games. A nice, strong, experienced defender to sit alongside the other two. And finally, Hirving Lozano, a player I would love to get a hold of as well. Got a hold of him in January by the looks of it. Played 8 games, scored 2 goals. Worth 57 million. They paid 47 for him, so he's got up in value. 19 more million pounds came in. Wow, who did they release? So Valencia went... It's only a real big name, isn't it, Valencia, really? Dallo went out on loan. Martial went out on loan to Milan. Well, Andres Pereira went out for 11 million. That's the player that signed last season. Went out for 5.5 million. Sergio Romero went out for 1.5 and Joel Pereira for 1.3. Schedule-wise, did they do anything else in any of the other competitions? So they lost the Europa Super League, Super Cup to Bayern, and they lost the Community Shield to Liverpool. They got knocked out in the first knockout stage of the Champions League by PSG. They lost the EFL Cup final against Liverpool, and they got knocked out of the FA Cup in the 5th round against Liverpool as well. So this wasn't as good a season, to be honest. I mean, if we look at... that's the annoying thing with that. 2 draws in the final 2 games. Fulham and Brighton, both 2-2 draws. If they'd won one of those games, then they would have won the league. That's such a frustrating thing to look at, isn't it? Draw against Burnley as well. It was an early season. You had a draw against Chelsea and Burnley. Again, draw against Liverpool. So you can see where a lot of the draws came from, but just one of these 2 games was a win and they would have won the league. It wasn't as good a season. They were close on a lot of things. Like I said, lost in the FA Cup. Lost the EFL Cup final. FA Cup 5th round. Champions League first knockout stage. Second in the league at a bad point. It's not a great season, but it's livable considering what's happened the previous 2 years. So I'm still pretty happy with Conte's run. But let's get to the end of season number 4 and see if they can bring the gold back. So a difficult 4th season, dropped to 4th in the league, but still only 3 points away from 2nd, so it wasn't awful. Goal difference wasn't as good. I mean, only 31, which was only, was that 1, 2, 3, 4th highest in the league, which it has been much higher than that the previous few years. So it wasn't a great season. Things were never going to be that smooth for us year after year after year, were they, I suppose? But let's see what happens. Everyone shut your eyes for a second when I click through here. Don't look at that. There we go. Right, so who did they bring in this season? £207 million worth of players. So first of all, Thomas Lemar for 95 million. Was it a good signing? In fairness, looks it. 14 goals from 35 games. 26 years of age, could definitely be there for a good few years and develop under the manager and hopefully become something fantastic. Next up, Gedson Fernandez, the young Argentinian central midfielder. Plays 32 games again, looks pretty nifty. They paid 42, he's now worth 54, so his value is going up. Jonathan Tah, fantastic German centre-back. 26 games played this season, which is pretty good. And finally, Rick Bertrams, who is a regen player. It's not bad, actually. He's got some pretty decent stats, especially for his age of 20 years old. Played 13 games last season. Worth 23. They paid 20 for him. His value is definitely going to go up. But who was sold? Anthony Martial for 45.5 million to Milan. Chris Smalling went to Betis. Mark Bartra, they signed last season, went to Newcastle. Lukaku went to Chelsea for 56 million as well. Wow. And simple little bits and bobs, but that's a surprise. Lukaku going. But then again, they did sign Martinez, didn't they, a couple of seasons ago, so he's obviously the big hitter now. Right, into the schedule. Let's see what they did last season. Right, so let's whiz our way to the bottom and hopefully see some good stuff. They won the FA Cup. They defeated Liverpool 2-1 in the FA Cup final, getting some retribution for the previous season. Goals for Lamar and Rashford. Champions League semi-final, they were knocked out on away goal. No, knocked out 1-0 by Barcelona over 2 legs, which is not a terrible result, don't get me wrong. And EFL Cup, they lost in the quarterfinals on penalties against Newcastle. So they won the FA Cup. Dropped to 4th in the league. It's still Champions League position. It's still a lot better than Gareth Southgate did in the previous video, but still not quite as good as I would have hoped. But we can't expect success every single season. There's a lot of good teams. You're going to have to share success around. It's been a fantastic first couple of seasons. This next 2 seasons have sort of dropped off a bit. So let's see if Antonio Conte can get us back into winning ways in season number 5. And he's back in winning ways. End of season number 5. Antonio Conte brings the Premiership Championship back to Old Trafford. 2 points clear of Manchester City. Now let's just double check he is still there. Yep, Antonio Conte's still there. That's his 3rd Premiership as the manager. That's pretty good, actually. Right, let's have a look at the transfer history. Boom. They didn't bring in a single player. Oh, they did. What's going on here? Have I skipped a season here? I don't know what's going on here. I'm confused all of a sudden. Why is there 2 seasons there? Have I messed this up? Anyway, let's just do both these seasons together then. So, what actually happened? Am I getting confused here? So, last season... Yeah, I've skipped 2 seasons for some reason. Okay, let's do this together then. Right, so... Man United comes 2nd in the league, just behind Liverpool. Well, quite a distance behind Liverpool, actually, 9 points. Then the season after, which is the season we're on now, Man United won the league. So Conte, this is the 2 seasons we're doing at once because I don't know what happened, to be honest with you. So transfer-wise, that's the wrong thing to click on. So we want to go to transfer history. Right, so ignore that. No, that was right, wasn't it? Oh my god, what's going on? Right, so in the first season of the 2 where they came 2nd, they brought in Lautaro Martinez. And 26-year-old Argentinian striker always seems to go for a lot of money on this game, and he scored 20 goals in 41 games so far. Next up, Alvaro Oridazola. 54 games, 1 goal for the right back. I think Under's a player who's been quite fought for by a lot of top European clubs at the moment, and he's at Man United on the game. He's worth 71 million now. Played 61 games, scored 20 goals. I mean, they did pay 94 for him. Next up, Paweł Wojciechowski. Young Polish goalkeeper. Played 2 games, conceded 2 goals. It's not terrible, but 21-year-old, I'm sure there's a lot more to come from him. Next up, Benjamin Bergholz, a young Austrian centre mid. He looks incredible. Look at them stats. Wow, he's great. He is. 47 games, 2 goals. And finally, Luis Eduardo Azura, Mexican right midfielder, 21 games, 1 goal. One thing I'm noticing about Conte is, although he didn't have very high working with youngsters, he is buying a lot of younger players, and he is bringing them through, which is quite good. £105 million in, all for Milinkovic-Savic, who went out to PSG. I don't know if I would have kept him. 22 goals, 97 games. I think I would have kept him, to be honest with you. I think he's a fantastic player. Everyone else went out on loan, apart from Ali Uturi went out, and a free transfer for one of the other youngsters. And then the season after, nothing. No players came in at all, which is quite strange. Hysaj went out to Fulham for 34 million, and Herrera for Inter for 13.5. Matic left on a free transfer, that's due to his age. Mason Greenwood left for Huddersfield for 525k. Lingard to Southampton, 7.5. Angel Gomez to Derby. Oh, okay. That's pretty interesting. Right, schedule then. We want to go forward 2 seasons. What is going on now? Right, 1, 2. Right, first of all, the first season where they finished second in the league just behind Liverpool. Right, so what happened here? It was a mess because of the World Cup year. So we've got some friendlies hidden away in the middle, but let's go to the bottom. So no Champions League, knocked out in the quarterfinals by PSG. Please don't tell me there was goals from Milinkovic-Savic. There was a goal from Milinkovic-Savic in this game. Right, so we knocked out Juventus in the process. That's pretty good. EFL Cup quarterfinals lost to Chelsea on penalties. And FA Cup got knocked out first round against Bournemouth. So a pretty poor season, apart from finishing second in the league. And then going on to win the league. How do we get on? Not well again. FA Cup semi-final loss against Liverpool. EFL Cup lost on penalties in the quarterfinal against Arsenal. And no Champions League? Why was there no Champions League? I thought they finished 4th. That's weird. There was no Europe at all. I don't know why that is. This is the 23-24 season. Stages 23-24 season. They won the league on the 23-24 season. But the season before they finished second. So how did they not get in the Champions League that year? I don't know. If anyone has any idea how that works, please do let me know. Anyway, let's go to the end of what will be season 2024 now. So this is season 6. So let's get to the end of season number 7 and see what happened. And there was a massive fall away this season. Only finishing 5th. I mean, it was pretty close, still only 8 points away from actually winning the league. Liverpool once again coming equal points with the top team and not walking away with the league. But we do drop out of the Champions League for the first time under Conte's tutelage, which is a little bit worrying to be honest. But let's see what else happened. Transfer-wise, let's ignore that because that's this season. Right, first of all, so let's just double check I'm on the right one. Yeah, no transfers last season. Right. They brought in Yassine Rehani, who is a Moroccan centre-back. Again, another regen player. 43.5 million he's worth. Wow. And they paid 49 for him, so he's actually a decent-looking player, to be honest with you. Ethan Foster, a young English right-back, played 4 games. I think he's definitely one for the future because his stats are pretty pants, to be honest with you. And the final player they brought was Ludvig Augustinsson, Swedish left-back. I've not really heard of this guy before, to be honest with you, but hey-ho, he's got decent stats. He's 31, so he's not going to last too long, but he's there. £124 million out. Cisse went to Young Boys. Taif Chong went to Lazio. Lewis Cook went to Chelsea for 42 million. Lindelof of Villa for 15. Hummels to Leverkusen for 4.5, and Luke Shaw to Villa for 11.5, and Gedson Fernandes to Milan for 29. No wonder they didn't do very well this season. They sold a lot of players, and they didn't really bring in as much quality as they sold. So that's probably a big reason why what happened. Right, previous season then, what did happen? Oh, they won the FA Cup though. Beat Man City on extra time to win the FA Cup. They lost to Man City 3-0 on aggregate though to get knocked out of the Champions League. And the end of the thing then is the EFL Cup where they got lost. They did lose 2-1 away against Aston Villa. To be honest, it looks like a mixed team of potentially a couple of youngsters as well. Michael Lee. That's a few players here and there, but it's not a great season still, to be honest, is it? There needs to be some more work on this. I mean, it looks like they've sold a lot of the top players, to be honest with you, so it's difficult to see, isn't it, really, if it was a good season or not. But I think transfer-wise, it's really cost them this year. Right, let's get to the end of the next season then and see if he can bring things back the way they should be. Well, it looks like it is over for Antonio Conte, no longer the manager of Manchester United. He's been replaced by Gennaro Gattuso, which is pretty interesting, isn't it, really? and he has brought in Colin Little as his new assistant manager. Now let's have a quick look and see when that changed place, whether it was literally at the end of last season. If it is, we can have a quick look and see what Gattuso has changed. So Conte, Antonio Conte, manager. He's currently the manager of Dortmund. Was that by his own choice, or was that by any other reason? He was sacked. He was sacked by Manchester United manager just recently, actually, just after being knocked out of the semi-final. So the majority of this season was done by Conte as well. So he was sacked. Let's have a quick look. He was sacked here. Just here he was sacked, and Gattuso took over. So sacked just after getting knocked out of the FA Cup by Man City. They'd already been knocked out of the Europa League by Sevilla, which wasn't great, and they've been knocked out of the EFL Cup 3-0 by Man City as well. Things in the league weren't going fantastic. Lots of losses in here, as you can see, a few draws as well, which did lead to a league position, if I can go across there now, of 5th again. So missed out on Champions League for the second season running. So you can see why it was made that he was sacked. That was a really weird sentence, wasn't it? You can understand why he was sacked, basically. So let's see what he did transfer-wise again. Bringing in a couple of youngsters. Bosnian Hadrudin Mumnovic, a Bosnian centre-back, played 22 games. Actually looks pretty decent, actually, stat-wise. And Zikovic, Serbian 30-year-old, played 24 games, scored 3 goals. 19 million worth of players went out. Dean Henderson, Augustusson they brought last season. Fraser O'Donnell must be a youngster. And another youngster went out as well. So again, I really feel like the big problem they've had in the last couple of years when things really dropped off is they just sold so many players, just did not replace them with quality. That was the big problem. I mean, this season, straight away, Gattuso has used his Italian links to bring in 2 free transfers of Christian Sabatini. Is he good enough? Debatable, but he was free and he's worth 20 million, so it's not too bad. And Robert Satulo, Croatian striker, again free, and he's worth £67 million. That is actually looks like a pretty good deal, actually. So that's what Gattuso has done so far. So that could be a pretty decent start for him. But unfortunately for Antonio Conte, it was just it was a great first couple of seasons, and then he just struggled to keep up with the demand of the club by the looks of it. Let's have a quick look then at his milestones, landmarks. Here we go. So he won the Premiership, FA Cup, Champions League, FA Cup, Premiership, FA Cup. So what's that? 3 FA Cups, 3 Premierships, and 1 Champions League. That's pretty impressive. 3 Anglo Cups. Just ignore that. That's my own little competition. So it's actually not a bad run as Man United manager. I would be pretty happy if that was the case. If we got him and he won the Premiership and won the Champions League, I'd actually be quite happy with that run. I think the last couple of seasons, definitely his transfer policy really died off. But whether that's entirely his fault, whether it's to do with the chairman as well, it's yet to be seen. But there we go. Anyway, we're going to call that it for the video because it might be quite a long one once again. I hope you have enjoyed this one. Of course, if you have, then please do hit a like. Of course, subscribe if you would like to see some more. I've been Shabby Gamer. Thank you much for watching. I'll see you next time for our next video, which will be looking at Diego Simeone as Man United manager. See you all then. Bye.